Okay, so in this video I'm going to explain this 864 block 6x6 cave door by me and Mum and Do. In case if you haven't watched the tutorial, I suggest you go check it out first to understand the components of this circuitry. Just to give you some background information, the 6x6 cave door series started by me actually making 0.45 seconds 5x5 cave doors. I have a couple of designs, but I didn't contribute for the most compact version, so I'm not going to make a video about it. Lum might make a video on it, so go check out his channel and stay tuned. So back to the 6x6 cave door series, Tim, Lolo, and Lum did the initial 6x6 cave door design at 1008 blocks, but with 3 wide sides. So I and Lum got working on at the door further and got it to 2 wide sides, hence making the previous 936 block design and this 864 block design. So in this video, I'm going to explain the details of how this door works in general and the specific parts of it. So let's head on to the layout first. So this is the layout. The layout is basically slime triples here, both the top and the bottom, and with these two sticky pistons. Oops. These two sticky pistons at the bottom, and these two sticky pistons at the top to pull these two blocks at the top and these two blocks at the bottom, uh, such that the slime extender doesn't pull it. So it's the same for these sliders as well. These sliders are to slide these blocks such that the slime extender will not pull these blocks down. Well, unless for the closing, because the closing we need to push the slider and then have these blocks here to get pushed up by the slime extender, but we don't want it in the opening, so we still have to make a slider for it. And these pistons and sliders are actually important, uh, just because if you were to not have it and instead having something like this at the bottom, then this would be 0.6 seconds seamless, which is not we want. We want 0.45 seconds seamless because this is the fastest that this slime extender can get. And uh, by sliding these sliders with blocks and pulling these blocks back, we are able to make it 0.45 seconds seamless actually. So let me remove these slider blocks first, just to give you an overview of the slime extenders working, like so. And let me grab a redstone block. Here we go. So okay, for the bottom, we push this piston instantly. Oops, I should also remove these blocks as well because they're going to affect something. So we push this piston instantly, then this piston at 3 game 6, then this piston at 6 game 6. But you would see that no, don't do that. But you will see that this piston is actually at the floor level, and uh, basically this means we need to power at the floor level, and um, as we don't want any activation delay for this piston right here, like if you were to think of a redstone torch to power this piston through this block, then there will be activation delay for the door, and we don't want that. So yeah, the solution is quite simple. Just have a dust here. Let me grab a dust. Here we go. So just have a dust here through this block, and this will get the closing of this. And you would notice that this block actually has to go down first, and then go back up. So this means that this floor block has to instantly retract and then go back up. So this block will be here at 6 game ticks, allowing this piston to power 6 game ticks. So that's how this bit works. And for the opening, it's also quite simple. We just basically reverse the order of powering. So this is going to retract first, then this at 3 game ticks. So this retracts instantly, this at 3 game ticks, this at 6 game ticks. So that's how we get the 0.45 second sequence. So yeah, by simply reversing the order, we get the opening of it. Now to the specifics of the sliders. The front slider has to push instantly since we want the slime extender to grab these front blocks here. So it basically is a double. So if you were to see here, actually I should go over to this one. So you can see these blocks are pushed up here. It's probably be best for me to slow this down, then place the torch here. So you can see these blocks actually get grabbed by the slime extender. So we basically just push this instantly, and these slime will grab it at 3 game ticks. So that's how this bit works. So these blocks have to arrive there at 3 game ticks. But we don't want these blocks to get pushed, like to get pulled up by the slime or pulled down by the slime ever. So this means that we need to power this slider piston, the back slider piston, at 1 game tick or at 2 game ticks. And the solution for this is quite simple. We basically just power this with a 2 game tick of delay by having either a repeater or an observer. You can also power this at 3 game ticks actually, but this means that you need some micro tick delay where you power this piston with a micro tick delay, and this is honestly not viable. So yeah, power it with a 2 game tick delay, very simple, and the easiest way for us to do. So for the opening, after we push this, so imagine the slime extender got extended already. So you would know that the slime extender will have these blocks here, and these blocks actually arrive to the floor level at 6 game ticks. So the front slider has to wait for these blocks to arrive here and to extend this piston such that they don't get pulled by the slime extender. The back slider is actually more flexible. You can push it at 4 game ticks, 5 game ticks, or 6 game ticks actually. And the slime extender would never pull these blocks downwards. However, this means that this piston, which will depower at 6 game ticks, this piston has to have a micro tick delay when it's depowering at 6 game ticks. So this is the same for the bottom and the top. And for the bottom, we like for the back slider, we power this at 4 game ticks. But at the top, we power at 6 game ticks because it's easy in our case. We'll go through that later. Now for these 2 blocks to retract back, we basically use a redstone block slider here at the bottom, and this redstone torch and a solid block slider at the top to retract the blocks back. And I will explain the specifics of it later, as it would make more sense after I explain a couple of things. So as I said before, the top is extremely similar to the bottom, except we actually changed the order of powering. So instead of this piston, powering instantly, we actually power the middle piston first, because again, it's easier. So this is basically known after me and Lum attempted to power with the same powering sequence as the bottom, and we find it to be quite challenging. So instead we do this sequence instead. So there is no big difference. It works exactly the same way. So yes, this piston powers instantly, then this has 3 game ticks, and then this has 6 game ticks. Now in the 930 block version, we basically have this block here and then this dust here to power this piston here. However, this also means that we wasted a lot of space just to power this dust, which powers the block and powers this piston. And this is actually not practical at all. So I propose an alternative where we power this piston by butting this piston instead. So this is the floor level. Sorry, this is the ceiling level, I'm sorry. And since these sliders are going to push, we cannot have dust here, or dust here. So we basically need a block and then power it with a dust, and basically butt this piston at the ceiling level. However, this piston also has to retract instantly for the opening, which means that we need to update it. So there are 2 ways to go with it. One way is to make this a sticky piston and then a block, and then basically retracting this instantly, so this will depower instantly. The other way is to have this piston to extend, like doing the closing, so it retracts and extend during the closing, and then we basically retract this block instantly to update this piston here. So 2 ways to go with it, and we go with this latter approach because it is actually easier for us to wire in this case. And yes, also by doing this, we basically reserve more resources, like if you were to think of survival situations. So this is actually simpler, and we can wire it easily, and yes, you can actually save more resources, I guess, because this piston is already sticky. You don't have to necessarily make this piston sticky. So that's how this bit works. So back to the retraction of the slime extender. This will retract at 3 game ticks as like before, and then this has 6 game ticks. So the sliders are similar to the bottom, so I'm not going to explain in detail. And again, these 2 pistons are controlled by the slider, as I mentioned here. And it is all, and yes, I'm going to explain it later because it will again make more sense after explaining a couple of things. And these side pistons is quite simple actually. So let me just replace these. This is here. Correct. Okay, so I guess I don't have to explain singles, but the doubles. So basically this powers instantly, then this also powers, so this also powers the 3 game ticks. So at the opening this retracts instantly, then these are 3 game ticks, then we 0 tick these piston such that this will retract the blocks instantly at 6 game ticks, and that's how we do the sides here. So that's the entire door, like the general concept, like the layout explained. Now we're going to go over the bottom, the sides, and the top individually. So this is the bottom, and you can see that it also relies on part of the sides here to power the back slider, like you can see these 2 observers. The front pistons are obviously the simplest. We basically just have these 2 target blocks to power these 4 pistons here. For a slime extender, so this dust line will power the piston here through a bud, like we updated here, so it powers this piston here. So that's how we do it. Then after 2 game ticks, this repeater, which will basically fire the piston at this level. So, and the piston will only be able to extend a 3 game ticks. So, yep, it's going to extend 3 game ticks. We'll then fire this piston here at the floor. And note that this dust, like here, is redirected by the target block here. That is because we don't want the piston here, sorry, I mean the block here, to power this level earlier, or it will mess up with the slime extender. So basically what I mean is that when I power this dust here, and I don't have the target block, then these 2 pistons will be here, if you would imagine. And since this dust is also powering this block, this will actually get butted, and this will become locational. And we don't want that. So we need to redirect this dust with a target block, so it doesn't fire earlier. And to power the front piston reliably, this back slider will push at 2 game ticks. Here you can see. So it will push at 2 game ticks, so allowing this dust to be not redirected and power this floor back. However, this is powered at 2 game ticks, right? And this is also at 2 game ticks. Well, it's not really that related, but basically, having this to only be like this target block to push to here at 2 game ticks is actually too fast. And yes, it will basically not work. So what we did instead is that since we need to have these blocks to not get pulled up by the slime extender, we basically used this redstone block slider to retract this block here, such that the dust that would basically power the floor level at 2 game ticks, it would not power because this block is actually retracted downwards, and then would only extend it back upwards with a 6 game tick of delay. So this block will be here at 6 game ticks. So that's how this bit works. And okay, sorry, I'm referring to something. Yes, I'm going to miss out a lot of details if I don't refer to. Okay, so this redstone block slider here that controls this piston and this piston is actually very useful, and it basically because these 2 pistons have very similar powering properties, and it's best for us to control them together than to separate it, because that makes life a lot easier. So this technique is actually also used in the 5x5 cave, like the most compact version. So yes, during the closing, the slider extends instantly, so this block gets retracted, and this block also gets retracted. And this block will not extend back, but this block will extend back because the redstone block here will go to here, and then the block basically will repower the piston again. And so basically the block will come to here at 6 game ticks, as I mentioned before, and this dust will power this piston at 6 game ticks. So yeah, and this is also the reason why we need to instantly extend this piston here because we need this block to be here at 6 game ticks. So this is very simple. We don't really have to worry about it. Okay, so I guess this is the closing actually finished already. Also, by the way, this is going to extend this slider instantly because, as I said before, the front slider has to extend instantly such that these blocks will actually get grabbed by the slime extender. So by just having this dust line here, very simple. So this is basically the closing. So as you can see right here, this will get pulled up. This will never get pulled. This will power the piston at the correct timing. And yeah, this is the closing. Okay, now to the opening. This dust here will turn off instantly because it's actually directly connected like this, which will depower the piston at floor level. Then we need to retract this piston at 3 game ticks. But you will see here, this repeater turns off way too quickly. It will actually turn off 2 game ticks. So we additionally power it from this hopper and this observer, which is actually one of the interesting tricks we did in this door. Now, you would know that this observer would basically power this dust line at 2 game ticks to 4 game ticks. But we needed to depower at 3 game ticks. So how does that work? Let me explain. So this piston here, sorry, this observer here is controlled by this piston, which is also controlled by this log and leaf thingy, which is quite interesting. So what you need to know is that the leaf will get updated by the log. Like they added after I think 1.30 or 1.14, I don't know, but leaf updaters, they're here now. So you can actually detect the leaf with an observer, and since the leaf will actually give an extra 1 game tick delay during the opening, this is 1 game tick, this is 2 game ticks, so this will actually push at 3 game ticks, which is exactly what we wanted. So we basically make this observer that was supposed to power this line until 4 game ticks, we push it over such that it only powers until 3 game ticks. So that's how this bit works. Now in the 936 block 6x6k video, I said that this has to be a hopper, and this is due to input bug. So I'm going to explain in full detail here. So first, what is an input bug? Well, it is obviously a bug where basically Western components, except pistons, fire 1 game tick earlier when it's activated by a player input or equivalent. This includes like the area that it affects includes repeaters, observers, you name it. So what is the problem here? This repeater is affected by the input bug, and if you were to directly power the dust with a player input, like if you were to power this input with a direct input instead of having a repeater here, then this repeater here will actually turn off at 1 game tick, not 2 game ticks, as for a repeater input. And we need this line to depower exactly at 3 game ticks. So if this is a hopper, this will be fine. Like if this is a hopper, this will be fine, as this observer powers this line at 1 game tick with a player input, and yes, it will power at 1 game tick, not 2 game ticks, because the observer will also be affected by input bug, and will keep this line powered until 3 game ticks, basically. However, if this were to be a normal piston, then for the player input, like if you power the input with a player input, this will actually like this repeater will turn off at 1 game tick, but this observer will only turn on at 2 game ticks. And basically this means that between 1 game tick and 2 game ticks, this dust will turn off, which means that this piston will also retract, and it's basically cannot re-extend until 4 game ticks, so the slime extender will break. So a hopper here, very important. And at last, so for this piston here, this block will be here. As you can see, it's also controlled by the lock, very smart. This lock will be here and will extend the signal such that this piston will depower at 6 game ticks. So if you were to notice, these 2 observers, and then as observers have one, like gives a 1 tick pulse, so basically this piston will retract at 3, like 3 ticks or 6 game ticks. So this line will depower at 6 game ticks. And I said before that it needs to have a micro tick, so this is essentially a micro tick. So very nice, and we don't have to worry anything about micro ticks here. Now for the sliders, we push this at 4 game ticks from these 2 observers at the side. This slider actually doesn't really contribute anything. It just so happens that this redstone block will actually butt this piston and will keep it constant in power, so I included it here. So this is the back slider. For the front slider, this is actually the part where we changed the bottom a little bit. It's basically copied from the 936 block 6x6 cave, but we changed a bit just to fit in for later the sides. So 1 observer here, and then this will power this piston, and then 2 observers here, which will power this piston here. Now, just a cool trick. This is basically a falling edge, because we don't want to power at the rising edge, or this piston will actually push the block here right now, which will basically break this dust here, and this is not what we wanted. So yes, and by using a tripwire hook here, this dust will get redirected, and in 1.16, you know, this piston will actually get extended. Like it will get powered by this dust here. So this is a cool way to do it. And yes, so that's how this bit works. And I actually forgot to explain something. Well, actually no, I haven't explained it. Yes. Okay, so for these 2 pistons, like this piston, where is this piston? Like the block? Whatever. I probably forgot to replace it. Anyways, so this piston, you can see we are using this lock technique again, lock with leaf technique. So this is actually 3 game ticks. So this will push at 3 game ticks, which will basically, these redstone blocks will arrive at 6 game ticks, and these blocks will extend to here 9 game ticks, which is exactly 0.45 seconds. So yes, that's how this bit works. And after further testing, you can actually power this piston at 2 game ticks. However, if we were to see here, this dust line, as I said before, will depower exactly at 3 game ticks. So this piston is also getting affected. And but if you power this piston at 2 game ticks, this means that this piston and this piston will be off by 1 game tick, which is basically just an animation issue. So it's not really that big of an issue, but we stick with this lock thing here. So that's why we use a lock instead. And this is actually the entire bottom explained. So yeah. Now we're going to go on to the sides. So this is the side. It's actually quite nice to fit in a 2 white space. Just by the fact that having 2 white sides is very challenging, and we actually struggled quite a lot just by discovering the tricks for applying the 2 white sides. Anyways, so okay, so this is the power line basically, and then we join this. So this line here will basically power the singles, and yeah, the singles are pretty simple. They extend and retract instantly, or I mean, they extend and retract instantly, but the blocks will arrive at 0.15 seconds. You know what I mean? But yes. So the doubles are more interesting. This here will power these three, and I updated this piston. Doesn't really matter, but yeah. Anyways, you get it. So these three pistons, we basically power it with this dust, and this dust will also power this piston here. So we basically extend the back pistons instantly, and we extend the poles by having this slider here. So I'm not going to update it here. So you can see here. And this slider will actually push down at 3 game ticks. But you would notice something very weird. First, there's this thing here, which will actually power this at 2 game ticks. So this is not 3 game ticks. Secondly, there's a dropper hopper here. So let me explain bit by bit. First, what is this dropper hopper thingy doing here? Well, it basically extends the pulse length such that this piston at the bottom will only be powered 2 game ticks. No matter with the input bug, like you can power with a player input and a repeater input, and it works exactly the same way. Now, as I said before, this piston will also power 2 game ticks, but we only wanted to power 3 game ticks. So how does that work? It actually works fine, but like how? So what you need to know is that this loop server is actually unable to power this piston at 2 game ticks, because well, this piston actually updates quite late, and having this observer here is not enough to power this piston right at 2 game ticks unless we add more microtick delay. But then it also needs to get updated because this is how pistons work. Like you need to update them, and these 2 pistons here will update this piston at the correct timing, and so yeah, we don't have to worry about the updating. So it will get updated at 3 game ticks, so it will basically push down. So that's how this bit works. And yes, okay, so an additional note here, you can see that this dust line is here, and it's connected by this instant repeater, so on both sides basically. And it won't actually matter, the bottom will always fire first, as this is a microtick delay, obviously, so this will always extend before the top gets the chance to extend it. So it doesn't matter here, and it's not a concern. Okay, so this is basically the back pistons explained. So these will extend instantly and will retract it at 3 game ticks because that's the timing. Now onto the front pistons. So for the front pistons, like this piston will extend this redstone block here and power this dust. So you see in the closing. Let me just, oops, not this again. So you can see in the closing, this piston here will extend this redstone block, powering this dust, powering these 2. The other front pistons, this bottom one, we power through this dust and the block, this is a barrier. Yes, like you can see clearly. At the top, you can simply just do it like this. We basically just butt this piston, because you can always butt it to power it. You can actually have a block here and then a dust here, but it isn't actually necessary. So just having this here is okay. For the opening though, these two dusts are going to retract these two pistons instantly, obviously. This piston with a redstone block will also retract instantly, because you can consider the observer as a slab here, so it doesn't really matter. So now this is going to retract instantly, this is going to retract as 3 game ticks, so this is going to 0 tick as 6 game ticks, and the 0 ticking here is actually quite interesting. So the main trick here is to 2 tick these sticky pistons with redstone blocks. Oops, got bad. So to 2 tick these 2 pistons with redstone blocks here to give us reliable 0 ticking. Yeah. So you can see on the left side, these 2 observers, they basically power this sticky piston from 2 game ticks to 6 game ticks, which is the delay what we wanted. So yeah, and same for the right side, except it is a bit different. It relies on the top a bit. So this observer here will power this piston at 2 game 6 to 4 game ticks, while this observer here will get pulled back and will actually power this piston at 4 game ticks to 6 game ticks. So exactly the same way. And for this hip here is the same for both sides actually. This line is going to depower instantly. So again, 2 game ticks of delay, and then this fires from 2 game ticks to 6 game ticks. So again, that is also correct. Same for here. And just some side notes. This piston will only re-extend at 3 game ticks. So it will update itself basically. So it will basically extend 3 game ticks to 6 game ticks, not 2 game ticks to 6 game ticks, but you know, that's exactly the same. We don't have to worry about it. And this is also how we update this piston here, because this is going to extend 3 game ticks. So this is a reliable update. So yeah, this is how this bit works. But what you will notice is that we also have to 0 tick this piston here. So I guess let me slow this down and let's see if we can actually see it. We need to 0 tick the top here, as you can see, and you cannot do it through this dust nor this redstone block. So we need to use another way. And I discovered a trick that is quite cool. So if you were to have like this sort of setup here, so this is the closing, like you don't have to care about this. And the opening, if you have this repeater at 2 game ticks, so basically you would retract this sticky piston at 2 game ticks, and then this observer will give a pulse to this configuration here. So it will basically power this sticky piston with a microtick delay due to this piston here. And this microtick delay is important as it gives a it gives a 0 tick basically to this piston. And yes, it will give a 0 tick at 6 game ticks. So this armor stand indicates that this is a 0 tick because it does not get pushed over. So yeah, this is a cool trick we did in this store. And so how is it wired in here? So this dust line is going to power this repeater, powers this piston, so that's the 1 tick, or 2 game ticks I mean. And then this is also going to get instantly retracted, like it will instantly extend and instantly retract. So this repeater here and then 2 observers powers this piston with a microtick delay and updates the piston here. So yeah, this is how the left side works. The right side is also quite similar. this dust line will power this repeater through this target block, and then it would basically power this, and then so it would retract at 2 game ticks basically, and this piston here will have 6 game ticks of delay, such that this will extend at 6 game ticks with a microtick delay with this updated piston. So that's how this bit works. And you might wonder, like, as I emphasize input bug quite a bit, this repeater here will actually turn off at 1 game tick with a play-in. But so how does this work? It actually also works fine when this is retracted at 1 game tick. This repeater isn't actually that important. The most important thing is that this observer line is reliable, and since we are detecting with a piston, so it's reliable. Same for here. We have an instant repeater here, so this one tick repeater will never get affected by input bug, so it's also reliable. So even though this is going to retry at 1 game tick, and this observer will actually power at, like, this observer at this level here will actually get powered at 2.5 tick, which is 5 game ticks. This here will push the observer back at 6 game ticks. So it would push to here. Basically, it would push at 6 game ticks with a micro tick delay, and it works perfectly fine. It just looks quite weird. And since we also have the micro tick here, so it works fine. So we don't have to match here. Also, like, in case if you don't know, this observer will actually retract to here, so there's no concern for powering the singles down there, because the observer is actually powering here, not here, as people might see. So, and believe it or not, this is actually the entire sides explained. The working principle is actually quite simple. So, yeah. So now we're going to head on to the top. So, okay, this is the top. The top's working principle is actually extremely similar to the bottom, but it's actually much harder to wire than the bottom. It's necessary to think of ways that can power the pistons efficiently, because if you see, like, here, there's literally very little space left at the top, and almost the air blocks at the top are actually used up. So it is important for us to think of ways that can power things efficiently, and we did struggle a bit on that, and that's why we actually made the 936 block version before the 864 block version, because we cannot connect this top at that time. So anyways, so yeah. Also, it's hard because we need to think of signal strength and input bug things and stuff, so yeah, it makes it more challenging. But okay, so let's start with the slide extenders first. This dust here will be reconnected by this piston, pushing this target block away, which will power this piston right here. It will power the middle piston instantly. Next, this 1 tick repeater will power this obsidian block here, and power the piston at this level, like this level here. However, this piston will fire 3 game ticks, and notice that this piston will push the block to here, and by this time, this repeater will already be powered, so it also powers this dust here. And this means that both this and this piston are powered simultaneously at the same tick. And you might think it would probably make it locational or directional. However, it's actually not the case here. let me show you with this circuit here. So this is basically a mock, like a circuit resembling how we power the top here. And you see when I power it, this repeater with the dust, like only the repeater here goes first, and then this repeater with this sticky piston will go later. Now if I reset this slime extender like so, and then I reverse the order of powering by just having this configuration instead, you can see the powering order is different. So this again, this repeater will power this piston here first, and then this repeater with a block here that's extended by the sticky piston will power this piston later. And this circuit basically shows that this circuit is completely reliable and it's not locational nor directional. So it works perfectly fine here. And so that's how this bit works. A side note that you can always replace this repeater, so you can see right here, this repeater with a let me with a block and a redstone torch here. It's kind of hard to find. Okay, you can always do it like this, but you know, a repeater it works completely fine because this piston will extend, like the block will be here later than this repeater powers, and the block will be retracted earlier than this repeater power. So this repeater basically is just like a power, it's just like a constant power source. So it does not really matter. Yeah, so basically a repeater here, very simple. And this is actually basically the closing, because if you see here, this piston will actually get butted, right? So it will get butted and it will actually extend 6 game 6 already. Yeah, it will extend 6 game 6 through the butt. So now for the onto the opening. So you will see here that this piston will not get updated, so we need to update it. So how do we do it? So basically this piston will retract, and then let me actually close it so you can see it clearly. This piston is actually powered by this block here, and this retracting this block here will update this piston here. So let me see if you can see it. Oops. So you can see it now in a moment. Basically, this retracting the block will update the piston at the ceiling level. Next, this piston, yes, this piston here has to retract at 3 game 6. So here, but we have essentially the same issue as the bottom. So again, this repeater will turn off at 2 game 6, and this is too early, obviously. And yeah, we basically need to depower this dust at 3 game 6. So how do we extend the process? Well, we basically use a similar approach to the bottom. So during the closing, let's close it. This observer over here, and this redstone block will arrive at this position at 3 game 6, which will extend this piston with an observer here, and this observer will actually detect this piston here that will be powered by this target block here. So it will basically give a pulse from 2 game 6 to 4 game 6, and this redstone block will extend this piston at 3 game 6. Like, yeah, it will extend, it will basically push this observer here, and will push from at 3 game 6. So that's how we get the 3 game 6 here to work. And there are a couple of things to notice here. First, it's kind of minor, like a minor issue. So while we are building this door, Lump suggested to use, like instead of this piston, he suggested to use this configuration instead. So a target block here. I don't know why I wanted to say tripwire, but oh well. So a target block here and then a hopper here. But and I just messed up the entire thing. So I'll need to fix that. So actually, this doesn't really seem like it broke too much stuff. I have no idea how that even worked, but okay. So by having that configuration, as I said before, on target block with a hopper, and this does not work in one of our variations, but I basically thought that the hopper would not work, so I replaced it with piston and the variation works. So we stick with having the piston instead. However, a hopper should also work as the piston. Okay, so as this piston actually helps to update this piston here, which I will explain it now. So this is another issue. So the second thing is, why does the top look so weird? Like you can see here, a target block here for like no reason, and then a slab here and a block here. Like it's absolutely unclear why this has to be here. And this is actually a result of a fix for locationality. So this slab and this target block, they are basically preventing this dust from actually powering this piston, which is of course very weird, like why we need to do that. So the target block here is actually powered by this repeating piston, repeater, as we see it. And this isn't that big of an issue, like this will just stay constantly powered until we have a issue where this piston would not extend reliably at 3 game 6, because there are observers here for the sides, and this piston does not respond to this redstone block at 3 game 6. And okay, so this piston is related because this piston actually can give an update to this piston, but the update is actually unreliable. So the fix for the reliability is to have this target block and this slab here to redirect this dust, such that this dust will never power this piston and is only affected by the redstone block here. So during the opening, let me slow it down. Oops. So you can see this piston will retract and then extend, and this acts as a reliable updater to this piston here, and so that this piston can extend at 3 game 6 reliably. So basically this not working made me thought that this cannot be a target block and a hopper, but the hopper should actually also work. But just so happens that this piston actually fixed the locational issue right there, so we stick with this piston to our final design even. The third thing is also minor. These two dusts seem to do absolutely nothing to the top. That's actually true. However, This dust here serves as a redirection uh, for this dust from powering this piston here. So yes, so that's why I included it in the top circuit as well, right here. Fourth is not really related, but it does affect something. These two observers at the side, like, oops, these two observers that would power, like here, you know, will actually power this dust unintentionally, and it is actually completely fine because this retake here well it will depower 6 game 6 because this block will be retracted instantly, so it will depower 6 game 6, and this observer it is 4 game tick of delay, and it gives a 2 game tick of pulse, so it also depowers at 6 game 6, so exactly the same as these two pistons, so it's not a concern, but yeah, thanks. And also this is also a reason why we need to have a slab here, because we don't want it to go down back to the sides, basically, so we need to have a slab here. So back to the slime extender after explaining these stuff. So for the depowering of this piston at 6 game 6, we have explained the 3 game 6 one here. So we basically have this weird repeater setting here. So how does this work? The repeater that is pointing to the piston here, as I said before, it will depower at 6 game 6. While this 3 games, this 3 tick repeater is also again acting as a power source as this 1 tick repeater. Like it basically serves as the same thing. See, the bottom we have the micro tick delay for depowering 6 game 6. We also need that at the top. So we add the micro tick delay by simply having this piston here to retract. So this is a micro tick, a reliable micro tick. So, and for it to have a micro tick delay, we need to have this at least 3 ticks, because if you were to have it at 2 tick, then this repeater will depower at 6 game ticks, which is also exactly the same tick, but it actually loses the activation. No. I mean, the micro tick delay. It loses the micro tick delay and would not work basically. So let's see here if we have that as a 2 tick. So the closing works, but you can see the opening, it just messes up quite a lot, and this piston would actually never be able to grab these slime blocks. Well, it might be able, but it shouldn't be. So having this retick very important. So this will depower at 8 game 6, so the micro tick delay is preserved. Okay, so this is the slime extender fully explained. Now onto the sliders. We want the front slider to move instantly, so it's quite simple. This block here, yes, yeah, this block here will power this piston instantly. Yes, and we power the back slider piston with simply this observer right here, which powers through the block and powers the slider piston. So this is also what we want as well. However, since we are using observers, like the observer to power these slider pistons, so this means that the other side, we also have to power them at 6 game ticks. Compared to this bottom here, powering at 4 game ticks. because it's actually possible to power 4 game 6, but you would need microtick delay, and obviously we don't have space for that. So power 6 game 6, there's no big difference, and it works perfectly fine. So for the other side, next let me explain. So this repeater will retract this sticky piston with an observer, and this is basically a 2-tick delay, or 4 game 6, I mean, which will power this dust and the block and bot this piston, and will get updated by this node block here. Yes, this is also the reason why we need this as a slab. So this is how we get the 6 game 6 here, because the front slider always have to have 6 game 6 during the opening. And for this here, it's quite simple. 3 observers right here, which will create 3 ticks of delay, which means 6 game 6. So this will also push at 6 game 6. So yeah, it's easier for us to do it in this way. So that's the sliders explained. Now we're going to go on to these 2 pistons right here. Instead of having redstone blocks, we're just going to have ordinary blocks with redstone torches because of survival resources, that sort of thing. And after further testing, to my knowledge, it should be like you can actually replace both of these 2 blocks with redstone blocks, because at the left side, this observer will power this at 2 game 6, which will make this redstone block leave at 2 game 6, the same tick as this repeater. So that's no big difference. And this block here, as I explained before, because even though it might seem like you have locational or directional issues, it will actually not matter, because this piston always have, like this piston with a repeater here, only with a repeater, has a higher priority to power first than this piston to power. So there's no location issue or directional issue to my knowledge. So you can have a redstone block here, but survival resources, that sort of factor. And yeah, so as a saver play, also we just have these ordinary blocks with torches. So for the closing, this extends instantly, same as the bottom, because this is the easiest way for us to do it, because we need to power this piston as well. So by just having a target block here and then a piston here, very simple and easy to do. And for the opening, unlike the bottom here, having a 3 game 6 of delay, we power this piston at 2 game 6. Now that is simply because we don't have space to power 3 game 6. We can obviously power 3 game 6, but there's no space, firstly. Secondly, this has to power 6 game 6, which means that it's easier for us to have in this configuration, which will power this correctly and this correctly. So there are no problems causing by this powering at 2 game 6, because these pistons will extend 5 game 6, so no problems created. And yes, this also helps us a lot on powering the back slider pistons. So, yeah. And believe it or not, that is the entire top explained. Also, I just realized I actually messed up this target block. But anyways, you understand how this sort works. But yeah, this is the Untitled Explain. I hope you enjoyed this video and learned something from this explanation video. I'm sorry if this explanation video is kind of a bit messy, and I do stop like at sometimes, because I'm actually referring to my script. So yeah, it's just to make sure that I don't miss on any points that I want to make in the store. I know this has been a very long video, so if you're still here, big thanks for still sticking around. I also have a slow motion video in the description below, so go check it out if you're interested. And check out Lum's channel. He's a great wrestler, and you should follow him as well. And hopefully I would make a world download if I have time for this. So yeah, if there's a world download, it will also be in the description below. But yeah, that's all I have to say for today. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.